Somebody, hurry! Come on, let's go! Let's go! Get on him! Get him! Come on, now, get him back! We gotta have it back! Make it go! Make it go! That's what he said! All right, Hennessy! Take it in! Take it in! Well time! Well time!
Hi, I'm Tom Brookshire.
And I'm Pat Summerall. Last week, the Miami Dolphins, a rather remarkable team, won a rather remarkable game for a rather remarkable coach. And Don Shula became the first ever to win 100 games in his first 10 years of coaching, and that is quite a record, Tom.
Oh, that is. Also quite a record, Pat, is the fact that Shula's Dolphins have scored the second most points in the NFL and lead the entire NFL with the fewest points allowed.
Besides that, they have a very good chance to become the first team ever to win every game played through an entire season.
That's unbelievable. Perhaps even more remarkable is the fact that Miami can clinch a division title by winning this week, and there would still be about a month to go in the season.
It's been a long time since any team has wrapped up a title this early.
That's right. Despite all this, there are still 5 other races that, well, are all hot. In fact, more than half the teams in the league are still within reach of those playoffs.
And we'll be checking into all those races, as well as giving you our selection of the best of the week at the end of the show.
And don't forget our fearless picks. I'm over 500 now, and, well,
I'll say no more. Mediocre at best. Well, it's my belief that those words should be saved for performances like that of the Miami Dolphins in their game last week against the New England Patriots, because it was fantastic.
What can you say about 4 pretty girls who enjoy watching a slaughter? What can you say about a young quarterback who has lost his offensive line and knows not where to find them? What can you say about the Miami Dolphins that hasn't been said? They are fantastic, they are awesome, and they are unstoppable. And that's a pretty fair description of their star runner, number 22, Mercury Morris, who started the rout of the Patriots with a triumvirate of easy touchdowns. The rest of the Dolphins chipped in by running stupendous plays on top of amazing plays. Earl Morrall and number 86, Marlon Briscoe, chipped in with the Dolphins' 38th point. Then number 11, Jim Delgazo and Marlon Briscoe chipped in with the finest play of the game, a 51-yard touchdown. Delgazo then zipped one to Jim Mandich to round out the biggest margin of victory in the NFL so far this year. For fantastic Don Shula, it's been 100 victories in his first 10 years, and he's the first ever to do that. For Patriots coach John Mazur, it was his last loss with the Patriots, but he probably won't be the last to do that.
While the Dolphins had a picnic with the Patriots, the Jets feasted on the Buffalo Bills.
In New York, all the press talked about was Joe Namath's individual brilliance against Buffalo. But before the game even began, there was some artistry that even old number 12 would have appreciated.
At Shea Stadium, the New York Jets didn't exactly exceed their budget for an extravagant pregame show. But while the pageantry was a one-man show, the game was a showcase for a 40-man effort by the Jets. First came John Riggins, who sprinted to what he saw as a certain score. Riggins was adamant but lost the argument, so on the very next play he settled the war of words with a bellicose blast that had the referee on tiptoes. Then Joe Namath let loose a screamer that Tony Green tipped like a volleyball into the hands of Jerome Barkham. Namath built a 24-3 halftime lead with this floater to Emerson Boozer, who was unattended in the end zone. It was a sorry day for the Dennis Shaw-led Bills. Shaw was sacked 7 times for nearly 80 yards and losses, and 3 times the alert Jets intercepted him. Just about everything Namath tried seemed to work. Once he tossed one up for grabs, and Rich Castor stole a touchdown from number 47, Leon Guerin. With a 31-3 lead, Bob Davis replaced Namath, but when number 40, Hank Bjorklund, missed a blitz, Davis was hammered. But being from Princeton, Bjorklund proved a fast learner, and the Ivy League zone ran neatly under a Davis lob. From the 9, Davis arched a pass toward the flag that nestled nicely into the arms of Jerome Barkham. Barkham's touchdown buried the Bills 41-3 as New York kept alive their hopes of becoming the wild card team in the AFC playoffs.
We've all heard that just about anything can happen in the game of football, but how can a team be outscored 2 touchdowns to none and still win? Well, just watch.
Last Sunday in the Houston Astrodome, the Oilers and Philadelphia Eagles kicked off a game many referred to as the Johnny Rodgers Bowl, because the loser could end up with the worst record in the NFL and the inside track to the number 1 selection in February's college draft. The Eagles have now gone 14 consecutive quarters without a touchdown. And last Sunday, this 78-yard kickoff return by number 26, Al Nelson, was as close to the end zone as they got all afternoon. All the Eagles' scoring was done by one man, number 19, Tom Dempsey, who kicked 6 field goals, which is 1 short of the league record. Meanwhile, Houston's offense lay dormant until well into the second half, when 2 recently acquired running backs from Cincinnati exploded. Fred Willis broke free for a 43-yard gain, which was followed by quarterback Dan Pastorini's rollout touchdown. Then late in the fourth quarter, Paul Robinson raced 30 yards for a score that left his team only 1 point behind. Houston had one chance to win and called on Bill Butler, the man who last year had beaten Tom Dempsey out of his job with the New Orleans Saints. With 16 seconds left and from the 43, Butler attempted to erase with 1 kick what his former rival had accomplished with 6. But the try was wide, and the Eagles prevailed. Final score, Tom Dempsey 18, Houston Oilers 17.
Well, I guess the Oilers can now add place kicking to their lengthy list of problem areas, Pat.
Might call it ironic, Tom, because last week an Oiler reject and his 3 field goals proved to be the difference between Pittsburgh and Kansas City.
In Pittsburgh this season, excitement comes under a new trademark, Steelers 72. And those concerned with the image were anxious to show the Kansas City Chiefs what it all meant. It means new enthusiasm for the game, a 6-2 record, and a now mature young quarterback named Terry Bradshaw with his rifle-crack right arm. But this Bradshaw hotshot was cut off by number 46 Jim Kearney as the more experienced Chief defense cooled down the fire of Steelers 72 and took a 7-0 halftime lead. In the past, this was a cue for the patented Pittsburgh fold-up. But this year, the young Bucks in gold and black have felt the spirit of Steelers 72, and they do believe. Terry Bradshaw believes. And this year, he seems to be surrounded with new converts. Especially devout is first-year running back Franco Harris, number 32. But the Steelers' second-half revival was not confined to the attack. Kansas City's vaunted offense of the 70s could not get untracked against Pittsburgh's swarming ball hawkers. Hawking a ball requires emotion. Whomever wants it the worst usually gets it. A swarm of black shirts wanted this one very badly. Linebacker Jack Ham recovered 2 Chief fumbles and provided field position for the folk hero of Steelers 72. Jarrella's Gorillas include all Pittsburgh fans who can relate to a thin little man who does nothing more than swing his right leg to earn a living. Number 10, Roy Jarrella, sent his Gorillas into ecstasy with 3 second-half field goals. The last a career best from 49 yards out. Jarrella is living the dream of a forsaken field goal kicker. 2 years ago, the Houston Oilers cut him outright. Today, he's the leading scorer on a championship contender. Jarrella's much appreciated contribution to the cause gave Pittsburgh a 9-7 fourth-quarter lead, with nothing left to do but grind up the clock. Franco Harris did that all right, and along the way, he ground up a few would-be Kansas City tacklers in one of the most amazing performances of this or any other year. Harris's powerful strides took him 134 yards. The 4th time in 5 games he's gone over the 100-yard mark. So far, Steelers 72 has been an unqualified success. The 16-7 victory over Kansas City left Pittsburgh in a position they've not held since 1947. 7-2 and all alone at the top of their division.
An uphill battle to win their 5th consecutive black and blue division title. And last week they battled the Detroit Lions and the law of averages to extend their domination of Detroit to 10 straight wins.
Last week, the Minnesota Vikings came charging out, rubbing their hands with glee, because their opponents were Greg Landry and the Detroit Lions, a team they never lose to. From the beginning, number 88 Alan Page harassed Landry, and the Minnesota defense held the Lions to 1 first down in the first half. Meanwhile, Minnesota's Oscar Reed, number 32, gobbled up great chunks of purple yardage, and the Vikings dominated. But when Oscar was called upon at the 1-yard line, he fumbled, and Detroit recovered. Early in the third period, Oscar made up for his mistake by slashing 20 yards to put the Vikings ahead 10-0. The Lions finally snarled back on a Greg Landry to Larry Walton hookup, good for 49 yards and 7 points. And then, showing a flair for the unexpected, Greg Landry faked a field goal and scampered for a crucial first down. Landry then dropped back and fired another strike to Larry Walton to put the Lions ahead 14-10 with time on their side. But alas, the Lions' victory was never to be. Their own mistakes set up 2 Minnesota field goals, and they trailed 16-14. With 5 seconds left, Errol Mann tried what would have been the winning 33-yard field goal. But the kick was blocked by Bobby Bryant. And while Errol Mann joins that long list of kickers who could have won games but didn't, the Vikings made it 10 in a row over the Lions, who really ought to undergo collective psychoanalysis to see why the color purple frightens them so.
Also in the Central Division last week, the Chicago Bears and their country cousins, the Green Bay Packers, renewed pro football's oldest family feud.
A feud it was. The 108th meeting between those two teams that began in 1921. And after all that time, they still don't like each other very much.
Linebackers Dave Robinson and Ray Nitschke are all that is left of the old Packer dynasty, but the Pack is back and following the footsteps of number 42, John the Crazed Camel Brockington. The new Packers renewed the oldest rivalry in pro football with the hated Chicago Bears. A bad snap from center cost the Bears dearly early in the game. The 18-yard loss forced Chicago to give up the ball at their own 24. John Brockington rammed up the middle for 12 and around right end for 12 more, and the Packers led 7-0. Bobby Douglas brought Chicago back, sparking a drive with this 26-yard keeper. On the 8th play of the 79-yard drive, Cyril Pinder slammed 4 yards over right tackle to make it 7-7. On the ensuing kickoff, number 37, Ike Thomas, almost went coast to coast, but settled for a trip to the Chicago 11-yard line, setting up Scott Hunter's 1-yard sneak for a touchdown. But that was the highlight of the game for number 16, Hunter. His 2 fumbles, 2 interceptions, and no pass completions stunted the Green Bay attack. Number 32, Charlie Ford, began the second half with this interception. And on Green Bay's next series, ex-Packer Bob Jeter picked off Hunter again, this time setting up a 38-yard Mac Percival field goal. When Hunter tried his legs, he was put down soundly with a hit by number 30, Jimmy Gunn, a hit which eventually kept a woozy Scott Hunter on the bench. Number 17, rookie Jerry Taggy, replaced Hunter, but the Bears had shut down the Packer offense. Holding the crazed Camel to 70 yards and 19 carries, they limited the Packers' total offense to 170 yards. At length, MacArthur Lane powered around left end for 35 yards, setting up the first of 2 Chester Marcol field goals in the second half. Marco's second boot came after number 89, Dave Robinson, stripped Bobby Douglas of the ball, and number 87, Alden Roche, recovered it for the Pack. Although the Packers' offense managed only 2 field goals in the second half, only 4 pass completions, and 8 first downs in the game, they held on to beat the Bears 23-17. And their victory, coupled with the Lions' defeat, left Green Bay alone at the top of the NFC Central, a serious contender for the first time in 5 years.
How secure the Los Angeles Rams looked with a 1.5-game lead over the rest of the NFC West.
Pat, that was before the surprising Denver Broncos made their first trip to the Los Angeles Coliseum.
As college coaches, John Ralston and Tommy Prothro had met before in the Coliseum. And this time, as usual, Ralston was out for an upset. Floyd Little did his part with 79 yards, 24 of them on the longest play of the game. Then quarterback Charlie Johnson passed to Jerry Simmons in the end zone, and Denver held a surprising 7-0 lead at the half. But the Rams' ferocious foursome made sure that Johnson threw no more touchdown passes. In the third quarter, Roman Gabriel brought the Rams a tie with a sore-armed lob to Jack Snow in the end zone. The Rams defense set up a go-ahead field goal when Charlie Johnson was intercepted by burly middle linebacker Marlon McKeever, number 86. But the Rams could accomplish no more. The Broncos took full advantage of Gabriel's sore arm and held Los Angeles to only 9 first downs. With 3 fourth-quarter field goals by Jim Turner, Denver walked off with a 16-10 victory over the sleepwalking Rams.
Denver over Los Angeles. Those teams in the NFC West must be staying up all night, Pat, thinking up new ways to stay out of first place.
I believe you're right, Tom, but last week the 49ers couldn't outthink Baltimore because the Colts have been studying defeat all season long.
The San Francisco faithful have been somewhat fickle this year, simply because the 49ers have not been the kind of team one could have much faith in. Their season has been a schizophrenic 3-4-1, so no one knew what to expect against the stumbling Baltimore Colts. Steve Spurrier to Ken Willard kept the Colts stumbling as the 49ers heaped more woes on the already dismal year of Baltimore's descent. Number 22, Vic Washington, ran roughshod through the once impregnable Colt defense. Then number 35, Larry Schreiber, rocked in for a score, and suddenly San Francisco's fair-weather faithful had returned. But Baltimore stayed in the game with one bizarre play. Bruce Gossett's kickoff made it only as far as the Colt blocking wedge, where one blocker happened to be running back Norm Bulash, number 36. Bulash was caught from behind, but got off a nifty bounce pass to Nelson Muncy, number 31. The famous Bulash to Muncy combination was not in the Colt game plan, but it was much more reliable than the regular Colt attack, which continues to grope for identity. Number 14, young Marty Domrese, is trying to replace a legend. Place kicker Jim O'Brien, number 80, is trying to be a wide receiver. And ex-assistant John Sandusky is now head man and just trying to bear the grief of it all. What John Sandusky has just seen is a 4th and goal from the San Francisco 1. One man feels the pain of the Colts struggle more acutely than anyone else. That's because Johnny Unitas remembers. He remembers other days when things like this never would have happened. John Unitas came in for one play, fumbled, and did not play again. Number 11, Steve Spurrier, continued to taunt the Colts as he threw into perfect coverage. But these days, perfect is not quite good enough for the Colts as Ted Qualick came up with the ball for a 24-14 49er lead. Finally, Domrez found a patch of blue in the gloom as he went on the fly to Sam Haverlack, number 17. The Domrez-Haverlack connection put Baltimore back in the game, trailing by only 24-21 with 4.5 minutes left. And when Domrez got the ball again, he went right back to the wide-open well. This time, however, Haverlack was judged out of bounds, and Baltimore had discovered yet another way to lose. 3 more passes failed before time ran out, and the stunned Colts found themselves 1-7. For nearly 2 decades, the Baltimore Colts were on or near the top of their profession. Now, painfully, they're learning how the other half lives.
And the New Orleans Saints met for the 8th time in a series that's become almost as one-sided as Minnesota versus Detroit.
After 2 straight losses, the Falcons were a game and a half out of first place. And one of the all-time great quarterbacks warmed up his arm before last week's game, just in case. Coach Norm Van Brocklin saw early that his arm would not be needed because in the game's first play from scrimmage, Bob Gresham fumbled and number 71, John Zook, recovered for Atlanta. Although Zook fumbled too, the Falcons retained possession and subsequently exchanged their gift for 7 big points. Later in the first period, New Orleans' second-year quarterback Archie Manning, the NFL leader in passing yardage, pump-faked, reloaded, and let fly for his favorite target, Dan Abramowitz, the man who's caught more passes during the past 5 seasons than anyone else in pro football. The 40-yard catch by Abramowitz set up a Happy Feller field goal, which made the score a respectable 7-3 at the end of the first quarter. But Atlanta quarterback Bob Berry did not have much success in the early going. Berry found it safer to stay on the ground with his runners, Art Malone and Dave Hampton, number 43. In a slow-motion replay, we can see that the touchdown began with a simple toss to the halfback Hampton, who followed number 64 guard Andy Maurer and number 25 fullback Art Malone. With a 14-3 lead, Bob Berry opened up his passing game to Ken Burrow, number 82. After 40 yards, Burrow was brought down by Billy Hayes, a former teammate at San Diego State. Bob Berry himself scored the next touchdown, and the Falcons led at the half by 26-3. After halftime, the Falcons' first-team offense stayed in for only one more drive. In their abbreviated game, Berry hit 10 of 13 passes, and Art Malone and Dave Hampton each accounted for 100 yards of offense, running and receiving. Berry's final stroke was a touchdown pass to Ken Burrow, and the first team left after 34 minutes, leading by 30 points. The Falcons went on to defeat the Saints for the 7th straight time, 36-20. Norm Van Brocklin can breathe a little easier this week, now that he's once again only a half a game out of first place. But Monday night brings the Washington Redskins, and that's a sobering thought for any coach.
If you ask the New York Giants why the Washington Redskins are like a river, they'd be able to tell you right away that it's because the Redskins are old men who just keep rolling along.
If anyone in D.C. Stadium last week was worried about the Giants stealing one from the Redskins, they shouldn't have been, because the Redskins have a dog-tough defense and an offense that can beat off anybody. But Washington fans did have moments of anxiety in a game that was wild right from start to finish. Many plays for both teams ended up being something other than what they started out to be. And sometimes the game itself ended up being something other than what it started out to be. But in the end, certain points remained constant. Billy Kilmer found the ever-super Charlie Taylor for 41 yards. Taylor's catch led to a Kilmer to Jerry Smith hookup that gave Washington 6 and only 6 as the extra point was blocked. Kilmer stayed constant and hot as he hit Roy Jefferson for 38 yards. Meanwhile, for 58 minutes, Larry Brown was an average running back. But in the waning moments of the game, he exploded, and the Giants' Pete Athis got caught in the blast. Brown's first score broke a 13-all tie. And 2 plays later, his second score gave him 106 yards for the day and gave those rolling Redskins a 27-13 victory.
Running up the score. But in Dallas, Washington's chief rivals, the Cowboys can't seem to run away from anyone lately.
That's right, Pat. It appears maybe that age is finally catching up to the Cowboy defense that is giving away points almost as fast as their offense can score them.
Quarterback Tim Van Gelder bubbled with joy at not having to face the doomsday defense. At the start of their game with St. Louis, the Dallas defense offered little evidence of their decline as they cut down the escape avenues of Cardinal Whippet Mel Gray. One member of Doomsday who hasn't slowed down is a cat-quick 33-year-old named Bob Lilly. Although Lilly's charge jammed Gary Quazzo's trigger finger, it did not impair the Cardinals' ability to penetrate the Cowboys' porous deep defense. Quazzo passed underneath the Cowboys' zone to #1 draft choice Bobby Moore. Then he bombed it long with a strike to wide-open Jackie Smith, number 81. Later, Quazzo deceived Doomsday with a fake reverse to Smith, and the misdirection froze Dallas long enough to open an alley for Johnny Rowland, number 23. The Cardinals scored 24 points in all, the last 7 coming on a short sweep by former Viking running back Leo Hayden. 24 points is usually enough for a victory celebration, but not for the Cardinals, who witnessed the grim evidence of Cowboy excellence. The Cardinals could pass, but they could not run. And led by quarterback Craig Morton, the Cowboys exploded for 33 points. Ron Sellers' touchdown revealed Dallas' quick striking capability. But the heart of their attack is running, and Walt Garrison, number 32, is their leader. Garrison is not flashy, but he never quits. And neither does his fire hydrant counterpart, Robert Newhouse, number 44. The stumpy Newhouse runs like a revolving door, always spinning, never offering the defense a solid shot. Fronting Cowboys setbacks is a young offensive line with even younger reserves like number 62, John Fitzgerald, who has mastered the techniques for a successful screen. Behind the immaculate protection of All-Pro guard John Nyland, number 76, Calvin Hill swept to an easy score. Although their secondary is much maligned, cornerback Charlie Waters is learning fast, and hidden behind a stunting rush, he soared past Bobby Moore and burst to a touchdown. Although Dallas' 33-24 victory was not glorious, it was impressive enough to stir the jawbones of Larry Wilson, the last remnant from greater Cardinal teams.
We saw earlier in the show, I would have to nominate the Oakland Raiders as one of the most inconsistent teams in the league. However, last week, the Cincinnati Bengals found that the Raiders, despite their ups and downs, rarely lose 2 in a row.
For the Cincinnati Bengals, last week's game with Oakland was a crucial encounter, and a win was needed for them to stay in the thick of the hairy AFC Central race. When the silver and black blitzkrieg went on an early bombing run, Cincinnati's Tom Casanova shot it down, and Raider errors such as this one allowed the Bengals an early 7-0 lead. George Blanda kept the Raiders competitive with 2 field goals while the Oakland team adjusted its game from an air attack to an armored invasion. Marv Hubbard charged for 98 yards on only 11 carries and got the Raiders in close with his 9-yard per carry average. Then he exploded for a block that led number 28, Clarence Davis, in for a score. From there, number 23, Charlie Smith took over and raced for 146 yards on 25 carries. Smith, behind number 64, George Beeler, slammed in to make it 20-7, Raiders. Late in the fourth quarter, Cincinnati surged to life. Bob Trumpy's catch and run ended with a bang, but brought the Bengals into scoring range. Ken Anderson to Chip Myers' pass was good to the Bengals, but the clock wasn't. It ran out on the game and perhaps on their title hopes as they lost 20-14. As for the Raiders, they're back in first place, but they don't have much breathing room.
For 3 weeks in a row now, we've selected running backs as our best of the week. Oakland's Charlie Smith with 146 yards rushing looks like he could be a choice.
And how about Pittsburgh's Franco Harris with his 134 yards against that huge Kansas City defense? He looks like a good choice, too, for best of the week. And maybe, Tom, even for Rookie of the Year.
Well, that's for sure, Pat. There's one other player who I think has to take top honors for the week, and it would be, believe it or not, Pat, a place kicker.
And with 6 field goals and 7 tries, including one of 52 yards and scoring all the points in his team's win last week, our choice for best of the week is Tom Dempsey of the Philadelphia Eagles. And you know him pretty well, don't you, Tom?
I do, Pat, and of course he has the all-time record, the 63-yarder against Detroit, I believe.
He is also a pretty good athlete in addition to being a fine kicker.
Yeah, he likes to tackle on the special teams, and he's a gourmet, Pat. He can cook and eat just about all the food in this country.
In addition to being a fine kicker, he's also exemplified courage, I think, in many, many ways.
He sure has. He's a great person. Tom Dempsey is our best of the week.
How about our picks for this week? Your record stands now at 14-12. Mine is 9-17.
But you're not mathematically out of this race yet.
Just about. Well, this week, New York at Miami. What do you think?
Well, I'm going to go with the Dolphins to keep it rolling along.
All right, that gives me a chance to pick an upset in the Jets. How about Pittsburgh at Cleveland?
I'm going to go with Nick Scorch's Cleveland Browns. I believe they might be a better team, and they do come on late.
Pittsburgh looks awfully tough, and they're playing good defense, too. I'll go with the Steelers. Minnesota's at Los Angeles.
Boy, I saw the Vikings last week, but I think the Rams might be able to score a few points on them.
Well, I like Minnesota. Atlanta at Washington.
I'll go with the Redskins.
So I'll go with the Dutchman and the Falcons. At any rate, we'll be back next week to show you what happens. I'm Pat Summerall.
I'm Tom Brookshire, and we'll see you next week.